Hi everyone. Welcome to Launchpad, an initiative by Newton School uh, to make you industry ready by learning different technologies for free. And this is a course on Introduction to React. Um, in the past lectures, we learned what is React, how React works, what are the components of the React, what is state in React, what are props, and we also learned how component works and what are the different lifecycle methods that are present in the component. Okay. Yesterday we also learned about something called as functional component. And how functional component allows us to have state by using hooks or use component lifecycle as we would use in class by using a use effect. Okay, so today we'll be going to utilize some of the things we have learned in our previous lectures. So today we're going to develop a tic-tac-toe game. So most of you would be familiar with it. It's basically it is basically um, a matrix of or a table of rows and columns having nine total cells, and each cell can be set by one of the players with X or a O, and the one who does like one who finishes with either the X or the O in single straight line, in column wise, row wise, or diagonally wins. So we're going to make that today. So let's just get started. So basically, how we're going to go about this is we're going to for each of those things, for each of the matrix we have, we're going to divide it into small portions so that we can utilize the React. We can learn how React components should be like structured and why it is useful to just make small component instead of making one big one. Okay, so let's just get started. So first we have to make our class app component because if you remember in index.js we are using this component to be rendered first. So we'll just make our component extends react.component. Okay. Now for that tic-tac-toe game to just I'm going to just show you tic-tac-toe. And let's just see the images. So we have something like this as an images. So what we have to do is we have to make these rows and columns, and we have to be able to click on those. And depending on which player is clicking, we can have like basically decide which one to be shown on the screen. So like if player X clicks, so we're going to show X. If player O clicks, we're going to show O. And for every time there is click happens, we also have to test that if some player have won or not. So like if one of the player have won, then we do not want to continue going until we because as soon as one player wins, game is over. Okay, so that's what we're going to make in the UI and also in the launch. Okay, so let's just first make our board first, and then we'll move on to how to make these click happen and how to make everything happen. Okay, so let's just first define um, just in the render function. We're going to define some stuff. Basically, just a div to contain every element, for us, and also we're going to define a div here only, and then we're going to define a board. Now what a board will be, this thing. So this will be a board. Okay, and what a game is or an app is this whole thing. Okay, board is just this table, and app is the whole page that we are going to show. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with the game. game or an app portion. Okay, so we're going to start with that. Just keep going. So we're going to use just return here. Okay. Now, what we are going to do is we also need to style it a bit. So I have pre-filled the style so that we don't have to write, because we have not discussed how to do styling in React component. So I'll give you a more description when we will discuss about this. Okay. So let's just go with this, and we have a game game class name, and um, we're going to do is another div game info. Right, it has to be game info. Yeah, game info. Okay. Now we're going to make our board component here. Now, since we did not make any board component, so what we have to do is we have to make it and then import it here. So let's just make a file called board.csx. Okay. Now we'll write a basic boilerplate code. Import React from React. Make our component class board React component. Okay. Now, if you can see in this image, we have the board, and then for board we have squares. These are the squares that we have. Okay. Each for a board we have nine total squares. So we need to, inside the board we have to render these 9 square. Okay. Now, how are we going to do that? But these 9 square are not just in a single line. They are they are in a matrix form of 3 by 3. Okay. So what we are going to do is inside a render function, we're going to return a div. Okay. So now so basically what we're going to do is we're going to make a board div, which is like the parent div, and inside that we're going to create 3 rows. So this is going to be 1 row, this is going to be our second row, and this is going to be a third row. Okay. Now inside each row we have to create 3 squares. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to use a square component, and we have to, and okay, so we will have only just a square component, so we will just make 3 square component each for each row. Okay. Now same as here, because this is a second row and it also needs to have 3 square. Now we did not define currently what the square component is. We're going to define it. Okay. So this we save, and now we're going to make another component known as square. Okay. So just copying the boilerplate code, or just import React from React class square extends React dot component. Okay. Now in this functions render, what we have to do, we have to render a square. Okay. So how can we render a square? Square is basically just a button, or a div, whatever you want to call it. Is just a button on which there can be a click that can happen. Okay. So we will just make it a button, nothing else. Return button. No attribute will be passed, just nothing. We're just going to make it just an empty button for now. Okay. Yeah. Return button, nothing else needs to be done. Now in this we are going to, we did not export it, export square, export default square, for default squares. Now we're going to import it, import square from dot slash square. Okay, now we have this. Just to give it a better view, we can use, okay, just for now, just leave it. Export default board and app.js, going to import it. Board from dot slash. Okay, let's just see what happens there. And so basically, what we did is we created a board component which have 3 rows. Each row have a square component. The square component does nothing but a what we can say is just basically a button, nothing else. Okay. Now, to make it look pretty, we have to obviously give it some a basic like styling. So what we can do is we can give it a basic styling here. By the time it loads, okay. So now you can see it is loaded, but no styling is there, so it just does not show very pretty. Okay, so just add a bit of styling here. So going in the board, class name, where we have. So now we have a class called board row. That's what we're going to use here. A row. So we for each row we're going to use a class called board row. We just copy this for each and every of them. So that will just give us what it is. It's going to give us is some margin and other things. That's what we can get. Okay, it's not about that. Okay, the square have the borders. Okay, so I'm just going to make square component also have a class name. Okay, so we are just making it a bit more user friendly. Nothing much about the functionality. Don't worry how I'm integrating the CSS here. We'll learn about it as we go through. Just import. Okay. So now we can see these things is rendered a bit better. So what is happening here? We have each this box that we see. Just a second. So each of the box that we see here is a square component, and the row that we see is the what we say is a component inside a row. So every row we had a div for each row. So each row had three squares, and that's what we are seeing here. Okay. Just going to run this. And now one thing to note is we did not. So the square component only knows to render a square, okay, but it does not know what that square is and what that square value is. Okay, now why we are saying like it has to have a square value, because if it does not have a value, what we're going to see here, nothing will be there. Like even if we add a click listener and make it click, but if it does not, it gets any past value, we'll not be able to see it. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to pass a value here. So basically what we're going to do is pass a value for now. Just we're going to pass a value like say x or something like that. Okay. Uh, for this, and let's see, value is oh. So for first row, we made like one X and two rows O's for now. Just these are the default values that we're going to pass so that we can just for now see if it gets rendered or not. Okay. So this is what we're going to do now, but we have passed it as a prop, but we not used it, so we have to use it. So what we are going to do is this dot props dot value, because we passed it as a value prop. Okay. So if we go into the browser, we can see we have these XO that whatever we passed. Okay. Now we also want that when we click on the square component, we want that it should like basically do is change square values what to like whatever player is. Okay, we want to change the square value. We do not want a static value. Yes. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass it as on click, and that is going to be a function. Now we have to define that function obviously. So handle click, we're going to define that. Okay, and now uh, what we have to see is it needs to know which square was clicked. Currently we do not know which square was clicked. Okay, so what we have to do, we need to have an index of which square is clicked. Okay, so that we can know in which square was clicked in the matrix. Okay, since we have 9 only, so we can just basically use like a single array to do that. Okay, so we will look into that later, but for now we're going to try to make a on click method which will like handle our on click. Okay, so let's just we going to do a console log. Okay, so let's just do is index. Okay, and just see that we can make it or not. This dot handle it. Now this dot handle click requires a parameter, so we have to make this an arrow function here, because we want this parameter to be passed here. So we know this is the square first square, this is the second square, this is the third square. Okay, so we have to pass this value obviously, otherwise there is no way to for it to know that what the value is. Okay, because we square component does not know what is happening inside the parent component. Okay, so we're going to do just that. This is this and on click one, click two, and click three, 4, 6, 7, and 8. And now, if you know, like in C and C++, you must have, or Java, like indexing start with 0 in computer science, basically. So we're going to use our zero-based index. So for 9 elements, we're going to have 0 to 8. Okay. Now, what we wanted to do is inside the square component, we are going to add a listener on click for our button, and what it's going to do is this dot props dot on click. I'm right, yeah. It will just call the on click function that we have passed. Okay, so let's just see this in action. If we look into it, we can see a console would come here. Okay, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we can see our console is always coming. Okay, and it is basically what the index is. Now, inside the board component, we are having an entry just which is just doing console. But actually, what we want to do is change the value that is here to the person who clicked it. Yes, that's what we want to do. So we have to define a state for the board. because without defining a state, how we can store value? There's no way to store value here. Otherwise, on if we store directly value without defining state, it is going to be refreshed every time the re-render happen, and re-render will happen because the square component will have different values here. Okay, so we have to define a state. Let's just define a state here. Now state would be our game or whatever, so we can call it square, and we're going to use array dot fill. Yeah, array, sorry, array, we want 9 elements and fill them with null, because initially we do not want any value to be present in the array. Otherwise the game would like always be seeming to start from some state which we do not want. Okay, so we're going to do that, and instead of passing a constant value, what we're going to do is this dot state dot squares of 0. So that's what we're going to pass in every, like for each the index that we passed here, like 1 here, so we have to pass the value which is inside this index. Okay, like 1 here, it will come. Now 0 1 2 would be here, 3 and 4 5, and we have to pass the value. Six, 7. Okay, and now if we look at our square component, what could happen is it will be empty because there's no value set here. Okay, now in the handle click, that's what we want to do. Now we want to set the value of the index that it is coming in the state. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this the squares and just take it from the state squares. Okay, now what we are going to do is we're going to make a copy of it, so that we do not update anything inside, like any update that is happening inside the state variable does not get reflected in our current processing. So we make a copy of it, and what we're going to do is we're going to make the squares of index to be, let's just say for now we want the value x to be shown every time there is a click happen. Okay, and then we have to set this also because it's a state variable. If we do not set it, no re-render will happen. So we are just going to set squares to be square. Okay, now let's see what happens. So now if we click, you can see an X will come every time I perform a click. Okay, and so that is to only show X, but we do not only have to show X only, because there is going to be 2 players. Okay, so we cannot show always X. We have to show which player, the player which was actually clicking. Okay, so let's say we start always with an X. So the player that is going to first do that is going to be player X. Okay, so let's just say we make a variable is player X, and that is a boolean. And why we are doing this? So that like initially we initializing it with a true, because we always want X to start. So whenever this X is true, we're going to add X in there. Otherwise, we're going to add O in there. Okay, so we're going to just use this property, this dot state dot is player X. If this is true, then do X. Otherwise, do O. And now, if player X has clicked on it, we also want to change its state so that it is not able to click it again. Okay, so if we do not change it, every time the player has done, the other player will not be shown. Okay, only the player that was first doing it will be shown. So what we're going to do is we're going to set is player X to whatever the value it was having to its inverse. Okay, it's negation. So what we're going to do here, we are, as previously we were showing squares, we're going to show we're going to set squares on also, but now we also going to set which player is setting the which player was clicking. So which player whose turn what was it and whose turn next it. So what the is player X shows is the so if it is true, it shows that this the player that was executing was player X. If it is not true, then it shows that the player that was executing was player O. Okay, so let's just see this thing. uh, we're going to do go there, and if we click first time it is X, then it is O, then it is X, then it is O, X, O. So it will be one, every time a player clicks, then the next chance would be of another player. Okay, now we did this thing, but if you can see, you are not able to understand which player is actually clicking here. Yeah, because uh, there is no message whose chance it is. Okay, so what we have to do uh, is basically have to show a status here. Yeah, status or something like that, so that the player can know whether um, whose turn it is to click. Yeah, so what we are going to do um, is inside this we are going to make another row sort of thing, so that we can render the status or whatever that is. Okay, we're going to use this class name is just to see which was the class name. Status, yeah, status has a status class name, and what we want to show is, let's just define a variable here, const status. Okay, which is empty. Now uh, if this dot state dot is player X. Now if it is player X, then the if this is true, now if this is true, then the next player needs to be status is equals to just next player is, or okay, uh, next player is going to be X. Okay, because here player X is true. Otherwise, what the status going to be as status is equals to next player O. Okay, and now we're just going to make this thing get displayed on the page. Okay, let's just do that, and oh, sorry. It does not, it needs not to be have cons because they are signing it again. So let's say initially we can see next player is X. If we click next player is O, so the current player that is going to do is O, then X, then O. Yes, so we can see every time a player clicks, state change happens. Okay. Now one thing you can see is if the square is already filled and we change it again, we click on it again, it changes. So that is not the way it should work. Okay, if the square is once filled, it should not set any state again. Okay, so what we have to do is inside our handle click. Okay, inside our handle click, what we have to do is we have to check is this square is already filled. So what we're going to check is if the square of index is filled. If it is filled, then either going to have X or it's either going to have O, but it is not going to have null. So if it is filled, then what we're going to do is return from here. Do not do anything, like do not set any state or anything else, just return from here. Okay. So let's see if after this we do not have to like do that basically. So it will not change again. So like I'm click on X again, it is not changing. Okay, neither the player whose turn it is changing, nor the value is changing. Okay, just to make it a bit better. Okay, so this was the way we are setting status, and um, we are making sure that it does not ever get resetted by another player. Okay, because if it get resetted by other player, then it is like making the game like not, it is like cheating. Okay, if a player can set another player, so it will be considered as cheating, or it's not in the rules of a not in the rules of the game. Okay, now once we have this clicking and everything happening, we need to also to just like decide whether the somebody has won or not. Okay, how we can decide somebody has won or not. So let's just go in there and see what are the possible values that could be there to which can make uh, mm, this game to be won. Okay, so let's just for time being just refresh it, and then we are just going to look at it. So any player can win if it has same in this, in a row, in a column, or in the diagonal. Okay, diagonal can be both diagonals. So like this diagonal can also be there, or main diagonal or the reverse diagonal. Both diagonal can be present. Okay, so what values we're going to be having? So this is 0 square. This is 1 square. This is 2 square. Just, um, So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, this is 6, this is 7, and this is 8. Okay. So what are the possible values that we could have? So the possible values that we could have is 0, 1, 2, or 0, 3, 6. So this row or this column, okay, or 0, 4, 8. Okay, from 0, if somebody at 0 did the same made an X, then he can win if he has X or 3 at 6, or 4 or 8, or at 1 or 2. Okay, that's why he can win. Okay, now if he made it an X at 1, so what is going to happen? He can win like in the first like 0, 1, 2. Obviously that's going to be there. Now one more thing that could be there is 1, 4, 7. So we're going to make 1, 4, 7. Now it could not have diagonal, because in any way diagonal we see, and there are only two elements. Okay, from 2. From 2 we could have 0, 1, 2. Obviously we could also have 2, 5, 8. So we're going to write 2, 5, 8. And after 2, 5, 8 we could have 2, 4, and 6 also. 2, 4, 6. So that's the two value that could have from 2. Yeah. Now same with 3. With 3 we could have 3, 4, 5, and with 6 we could have 6, 7, 8. Yes. So these are the possible values that we could have, which will be able to like, which will give us the possible winning of like the possible ways in which it can win, like a player can win if it put X or an O in any of the squares. Okay, uh, I hope it is clear in this part. So what we have to do is we have to check in the squares we are having. So in these squares, and check with these values. Okay, so how are you going to do it? Let's just see that. Okay, so um, so what we're going to do inside the board function, or like, so in this we have to see, we have two things. We can either make it in the function that is going to check if it's a winner or not inside the board component, or we can make it as a separate function. Now, why we have to choose? Because but why we have to choose? Because we can directly put it here, but our component will get bigger, and it is not as much. It does not need any state, or like it does not need to do anything inside the component. It will not change any state. It will not do anything. It just checking whether the whether the person have won, or if somebody has won, and if that if it's true, then who has won. Okay, so what we can do is we can just make a function here, just here, or like just make a file here. Let's say it is a util file, because it is a utility function, and we can define a function here. Export function calculate. Now, what it will need? It will need the squares array. Okay, it will need a square array. Then we have to make the array which we calculated, like which values needs to be there. Yeah, calculate winning squares is equals to. It's going to be an array of an array. So basically, what it is going to be 0, 0, 3, 6, so 0, 3, 6, 0, 1, 2. 036012048 08. Okay. Now going with the 3. 3 is going to be 345 and then 678. Okay. 345 and 678. 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8. Okay. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8. 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8. And then we're going to have 2, 4, 6. Yes. Let's just to make sure we have not missed any. 0, 3, 6, 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8. These are that. 1, 4, 7, 0, 3, 6, 2, 5, 8. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the two types. Yep. 0, 4, 8 and the 2, 4, 6. 2, 4, 6, 0, 4, 8. Yeah. So these are the possible winning possibilities we have. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to iterate over these. So let's just iterate over these for let I 0, I less than winning squares dot length, and okay. Now we're going to destructure whatever the value inside the winning square, current winning square is. Just make it ABC. Okay. Now what these store are the indexes, which are the so like each row in the winning square is the combination of square indexes which can win. So we have the indexes. So we have to look into the square and check whether like A and B and C, all the three indexes are equal or not. Okay. So let's just check it out. Const of A, B, C would be winning square of I. we are basically just doing a destructuring here. So if you remember from last lecture, we used use state, and use state use the same destructuring method. So whenever you are getting us an array return, so you can just directly like destructure the array elements basically like this. Okay. So what we are going to do is we're going to check if square of a is that, like why we are checking this, because if you remember, we have initialized it with a null. So if it is not present and then we are checking it, it's going to give us an so basically what would happen is if we just basically do not check this is null or not. So if all the three rows are null, then it is going to be equal. But we do not want to make a null equal. We want either the x to be x equal or o equal. Okay, so we have to check that if it is not null. If it is not null, then it is either an x and o. Now other element can be null, no problem, because if first one is not null, and if we check other element with the first element, then it's not going to be a problem because that's going to return false. Okay, so square of a, now that should be equals to square of b, and square of a should also be equals to square of c. Okay, now if it is true, then return square of a, because that if these are equal, then you can send any one of them, no problem. Okay, now if it is not, like if we have iterated over all these possibilities and there is nothing found like in the current square state that is equals to this, so what we can do is we're going to return null. Okay, now we have to use this function somewhere. Now uh, if you remember, we made this thing squares of index, so that I use if one of the squares clicked one time, like and it has some value either an x or o, it is not should not be able to click. Okay, and user cannot click a square again and again. Yes, so the same way, if somebody has won, then the game is over, obviously. So we have to check calculate winner. We have yeah, calculate winner. So this is by default importing. These are some extensions of VS Code that default imports. So calculate winner. What we have to pass? We have to pass the squares value. Yes, and if it does not returns null. So what will happen? Means somebody has won. Okay, because we have programmed that if no if somebody has won, then return some value, otherwise return null. Okay, so if somebody has won, then it returns directly from here, you know? And then nobody will be able to click the square again if somebody has won. Okay, now as the status we had, like we made a status also. So now we have to also make sure that if somebody wins, then we have to assign that as a winner. Okay, so that to let them know that somebody has won. Okay, so how could we know who is the winner? We just call the function calculate winner, and we just pass the value of this dot state dot squares. Okay, so this will return a winner. And now if we have a winner, so if winner is not null, then status needs to be winner is we can just make it. Okay, so this will show us winner. Now just need to change here, because if it is winner, then we do not have to show this whoever the next player is. Okay, we just need to show that status winner is. Okay, so let's just save it and let's see if it works or not. Just this thing. Okay, so let's just do a run. So now next player is O. So wherever I do is going to be O. Now next pair is X. So we can just make X here. And then now next pair is O. So we can make O here. And then next pair is X. We can make here. Now we can see winner is X because it is in diagonally. X has the three contiguous values. Okay. So that is how we're going to make this. Okay, so this was the basic implementation of tic tac toe. Now we can do many more things with that with this. So like basically what we can do is we can save this history also, so that user can do like redo and redo moves, and we can also like basically allow the user to go directly to instead of going one by one, we can do like just allowing the user to go to certain point of time in the game. Okay, now as an assignment you can do that. It's going to be fun and challenging thing, and you will learn how you will like from yourself learn how to make these how to make the state and how to update it, when to update it, and what are the effects we're going to have when we update these states and all those things. Okay, so in this, basically what we have done is we had a board, and inside the board we have the whole logic, because the board was the main component which should have the logic. Okay, but we do not wanted this everything to be there, so we divided the board into rows and columns, and each row would be defined inside the board, but a column or a square is another component which is very small component, does not have anything. It's a very small but since you have divided it, your code looks very readable, and your code looks very simple and maintainable. Okay, when you go develop big components and you like put everything inside one place, you're scrolling for like 1 minute to just find out where the exact thing that you wanted to write was, or where it was, whatever you wanted to change. And that's a very tedious task when your code is very complex. Okay, because you if you lost track and you changed the same variable but somewhere else, that would create a bug, or like maybe change the whole feature whatever you were building. Okay, so you should always try to just make these components as small as possible, and always. And one more thing we have done is we have used a util function, and in that util function we have exported a we wanted that function inside the board. Yes, we are using that function inside the board, but that function does not have anything related to the board. It does not need anything. It does not need a state. It does not need a prop. It does not need anything. It just needs the square value, and it will just return you whatever you wanted to have, like whatever the output should be there inside the function. So that's why we do not want to just complicate our component. We remove that from there, and we put it inside a util function. Okay, and we can just directly, as a normal JavaScript function, we can call it, and that makes the code look very good. So like if you have put it like calculate winner inside this, it would be okay, but do your like does your function requires anything that is inside the component? Does not. Why use it then there? Okay, so these are some key important points we need to keep in mind when designing components. So that's it in this lecture. In the next lecture we learn how to call an API, and how we can basically how we can style. So you can see that I use styles here. How could I use CSS inside the React component, and some other things. Okay, so that's it for this lecture. Thanks for your time.